What's good? It's Woog. In this video, I'm gonna give my final prediction on Artur Beterbiev, 20 wins and 0 losses with 20 knockouts, defending his WBC, IBF, and WBO titles versus Dmitry Bivol, 23 wins and 0 losses. And Dmitry Bivol will be defending his long-held WBA light heavyweight title. This is the battle for Undisputed. I just dropped a video where I did a lot of analysis. I looked at a lot of the different scenarios, their histories, their tendencies, perhaps some flaws, and I gave you what my gut feeling was like at the time. And I said that I was going to do this final prediction video where I give my final thoughts and leave you with the prediction. So that's what we're doing right here. So this fight is kind of being classified as the pressure fighter, Artur Beterbiev, who's got the heavy hands, who's got the 100% knockout ratio. And the idea is that Dmitry Bivol will be the boxer to Beterbiev's boxer puncher. But I had said in that last video that I think that this is somewhat being misclassified if you think that Dmitry Bivol is going to simply be moving away from Beterbiev. If you think this is the hunter versus the hunted and that Bivol will be on his back foot throughout the fight, I was saying, think about it. When you have seen Dmitry Bivol over the years, and we have seen him just like we've seen, the pressure bust pipes on the Beterbiev side where he's broken down all of his opponents and stopped them all, from Gvozdyk to Marcus Brown to Joe Smith Jr. within 2 rounds. And even if Beterbiev gets off to a shaky start where he drops 2 of the first 3 rounds, like against Gvozdyk was up through several rounds, I would say, in that fight, boxing very well. Marcus Brown had a good start. Anthony Yarde was competitive early. It becomes an increased avalanche of activity from Beterbiev. He starts turning up the temperature round over round until he breaks his opponent. Whereas Dmitry Bivol, we've seen him over the years more or less outclass his opponents. Like before that TKO win in his last fight against Malik Zinad, his last 9 fights before that, you'd have to go all the way to Sullivan Barrera in 2018 when he had gotten his previous stoppage. He had 9 fights in a row where they were all unanimous decision wins. No split decisions, so no scorecard had it a draw or had it for the other guy. These were all convincing unanimous decision wins for Dmitry Bivol. Even in the fights that he didn't look so good. I didn't think he looked great against Craig Richards and Umar Salimov, but there was still no question who won the fight. So Dmitry Bivol, again, has been seen to outbox his opponents to where by the time you hit the second half of the fight, there's no intrigue or mystery or wonder in terms of who's winning the fight. Dmitry Bivol has started to control the fight by that time, but he's not winning the fight by giving up ground and giving up space. He's standing his ground, and he's, if anything, putting fast combinations together and backing you up to where you start moving. Like look at the Lyndon Arthur fight. That was 2 fights ago, or several fights before that when he beat Jean Pascal, who's kind of an episodic hard puncher, fast puncher, but he'll go back foot, and wait for his moments to counter or to throw 2 or 3 hard punches. Jean Pascal was pursuing Bivol early, but Bivol was winning those exchanges, throwing those fast combinations, using his footwork to manage range to stay just outside of the range when Jean Pascal would throw his punches, and then come in range really quickly with his feet to throw 2 or 3, maybe 4 fast punches in return. By the 3rd, 4th, 5th round, Pascal was covering up, backing up, giving Dmitry Bivol the real estate while looking for his opportunities to strike back effectively. Dmitry Bivol ran away with that one on the scorecards. Or if you look at the fight against Gilberto Ramirez, which on paper was probably the most competitive matchup we've seen Dmitry Bivol in the last several, Canelo Alvarez was a big betting favorite against Dmitry Bivol. But even in that one, Dmitry Bivol wasn't just backing up. He was standing his ground. He had Canelo on the ropes, kind of waving him in by the 5th round. And then again, with Zurdo Ramirez, who was the bigger of the 2 guys, Zurdo Ramirez was taking steps back by the 3rd, 4th round because Dmitry Bivol, again, such an accurate puncher, great footwork. I will not overstate how good at managing range he is. Now, people say, I saw a lot of the comments and I was surprised. The vast majority of you in the comments to my last video were picking Beterbiev not only to win, but to win by stoppage. And that's kind of the major consensus, is that it's either going to be Artur Beterbiev via stoppage, knockout, or Dmitry Bivol via decision. But I was surprised at how many in the comments were saying Beterbiev's got this, and these are the reasons why. I mean, they were sophisticated comments. They were giving a lot of detail, a lot of analysis. I just thought it was going to be closer to 50-50, but I'll share with you in my live chat and on YouTube, where you could post a community post. I'll show you what the poll that I ran on who's going to win this fight and how. I would say right now it's about 60-40 in favor of Beterbiev. Now, the betting odds have Dmitry Bivol as a slight favorite, like we're talking minus 120. So this, I think, is still seen as a 50-50-ish fight, which makes it so compelling. By the way, in the last video, I also gave the reasons why this matchup is so important. It's because in the last generation of elite light heavyweights, we never got the showdown between the top two dogs, Sergey Kovalev and Adonis Stevenson. Adonis Stevenson long held the WBC belt. Kovalev worked to get, I think, the other 3 belts. So Kovalev in this case would be the Artur Beterbiev, and Adonis Stevenson would be the Dmitry Bivol, not because of their styles, but because you had one guy holding one belt for a while, facing his mandatories and other guys like Adonis Stevenson did, and then you've got the other guy who's working to get all 3 of the other belts like Beterbiev did, like Sergey Kovalev did. But we never got the resolution in the last generation of light heavyweights. In this case, I for a while thought that we were not gonna get this one either, but enter Turki Al-Sheikh, who was able to do what the other major boxing promoters weren't able to do in getting this fight together. Beterbiev versus Bivol, such an important fight and a long anticipated fight. I would say outside of maybe Crawford Spence and maybe Canelo versus Benavidez, this might be the most anticipated fight in terms of the duration, how long we've been wanting this fight. Because you could say the heavyweight battle for Undisputed, but I think we long thought that was going to be Tyson Fury versus Anthony Joshua, or for a while it was looking like Anthony Joshua, Deontay Wilder. It wasn't until Usyk stormed the gates at heavyweight and started knocking guys off and beating AJ back-to-back times that we said, wait a second, maybe Tyson Fury versus Usyk is the generational heavyweight matchup, which it turned out to be. But yeah, for a long time I was doubting that Beterbiev versus Bivol would be put together. There just wasn't enough money in the pot coming from any other major promoter, because this isn't like a blockbuster hit. This doesn't register well with casuals. You've got to spread the word as boxing fans to the casuals why this is such an important fight. And that's what I'm doing in a few like chat rooms, letting people who were way more excited about Gervonta Davis versus Ryan Garcia, letting them know, no, Artur Beterbiev versus Dmitry Bivol, this is super elite versus super elite. Both of these guys have very different styles, but have basically run the table through the light heavyweight division in their respective lanes. And finally, they're getting together. But back to the expectation in terms of how this fight is likely to look. Again, I wouldn't be so sure that Dmitry Bivol is going to be moving away from Artur Beterbiev. If he does in fact have the quicker hands, and we've seen guys with quicker hands than Beterbiev. Anthony Yarde, I think, has quicker hands than Beterbiev. And again, Gvozdyk was outboxing him through a few rounds. You could look really good against Beterbiev in the first few and still get stopped in the middle rounds. But Dmitry Bivol, I just look at his discipline, his kind of mental fortitude. I look at his IQ, and I look at how he kind of dominates in the ring. Again, he's not stopping his opponents like Beterbiev, but there is no question who is in control in Dmitry Bivol's fights. I don't care if he's fighting Canelo, Zorda Ramirez, Joe Smith Jr., Jean Pascal, Ike Chilemba, Sullivan Barrera. It's Bivol in control. So again, don't be surprised if you see Bivol not charging Beterbiev, but standing his ground, kind of using a wide stance to lean back and to fire his combinations. And if Beterbiev looks like he might be just a step behind, which brings me to the next wild card or X factor in this fight. This fight was postponed several months ago because Artur Beterbiev sustained a knee injury. I believe he had ruptured his meniscus. This fight, when it was first reported to be postponed, they said that he was going to be inactive until like late September. This fight is taking place mid-October. So unless Beterbiev far exceeded the recovery timetable, I don't know that Beterbiev's knee is 100%, and he's been sustaining these little injuries or bigger injuries before a lot of his fights. Like if you look at his last several fights, many of them have been postponed due to injury. But then if there's any concern on whether it's going to impact his performance, he then gets in the ring and knocks the guy out. So that's just kind of the pattern that we've been seeing. But Beterbiev is now 39 years old, and he's coming back quickly, in my view, from a torn meniscus to fight somebody with great legs in Dmitry Bivol. So I know that it's the increased pressure over time, and he's got this relentless avalanche approach where he's just swarming you with those short two-handed hooks and just kind of beating you into the ropes, into the corners until you just succumb to the pressure and to the power. But Dmitry Bivol isn't these other guys. Anthony Yarde, talented fighter. He's not Dmitry Bivol. I would pick Bivol over Yarde. Yarde is a good fighter though. Joe Smith Jr., we've seen Dmitry Bivol beat Joe Smith Jr. Yes, he got hurt late in one of the late rounds at the end of the round as the bell sounded, but you know, if you look at the 12th round of that, it wasn't Joe Smith Jr. coming on strong. It was Dmitry Bivol looking like he might drop and finish Joe Smith Jr. by the time that fight hit the 12th round. The one guy I would kind of liken to Dmitry Bivol, or the two fights that I think would be, you know, worth watching to kind of gauge how this might go, would be the Gvozdyk fight for Beterbiev, and maybe even the Marcus Brown fight, even though Marcus Brown kind of backs up a little bit and he's a bit of a counterpuncher, but he did have a style that gave Beterbiev problems early, and he did come in with the head and they clash heads and it opened up a pretty nasty cut on Beterbiev. So there was a lot that wasn't going right for Beterbiev early in the Marcus Brown fight, but he stopped him by the 9th round. And you know, online boxing analyst Richard Dwyer, one of my favorite, he's looking at this, he thinks Dmitry Bivol is going to win the fight, but he's saying he's going to put something on Beterbiev to win in the first half of the fight, rounds 1 through 6. I'm like, nah, because if Beterbiev wins, I don't think it's going to be an early round blowout. I would be shocked if Beterbiev steamrolls Dmitry Bivol within 6 rounds like he did Joe Smith Jr. within 2 rounds. If you look at his other stoppages outside of Gvozdyk, who he stopped in the 5th round, he stopped Callum Smith in the 7th round, Anthony Yarde in the 8th round, Marcus Brown in the 9th round, even Adam Dynas in the 10th round, Gvozdyk 10th round. These are cumulative stoppages over time. He's not just coming in there, he's not knocking you out like Deontay Wilder or like Adonis Stevenson knocked some of his opponents out with like 1 or 2 huge punches, Gervonta Davis. He's not that kind of a puncher. He's a beat you down and break you down puncher. I don't see a scenario where he stops Dmitry Bivol in the first few rounds unless Dmitry Bivol like tears his shoulder or blows his knee early in the fight. That's the only way I could see Dmitry Bivol getting stopped in the first half of the fight. Otherwise, this is how I classify and could see this fight going. Dmitry Bivol winning majority of the first 4 rounds, maybe 3 of the first 4 rounds, something like that. Beterbiev, if his knee is like close to right, because if his knee isn't right, then I don't think he's going to gain momentum in this fight. But if his knee is relatively okay, let's say his knee is at 80%, I think that Beterbiev starts picking up more momentum in like the 5th and 6th round, where you start seeing Bivol's punches less effective. You start seeing Bivol less willing to let combinations go. You see more movement from Bivol, or Bivol being forced to stand in the pocket more in the middle rounds, because that's what we see sometimes. If we see boxer versus puncher or boxer versus boxer puncher, the boxer could win the first few rounds, and then it's a matter of how many rounds did you bank before the puncher started to get to you, started to win rounds, started to threaten to knock you down, something like that. But I don't think that this fight is going to result in a stoppage. I mean, it's certainly possible, but I often look at super elite versus super elite as being fights that will likely go the distance. Yes, we've seen it where, I mean, Terrence Crawford kind of blew Spence away, right? But that was so lopsided performance-wise. I don't think any of us imagined that that fight was going to be that non-competitive and that Crawford was going to put on a performance quite like that, where it looked like Spence never had a chance. I don't think that this is going to be that. I could be wrong, but I don't see it being that. If it's not that, I think that it's a higher likelihood that this thing goes the distance. Even if Beterbiev wins the fight, I think it's going to be because he started turning things around earlier than anticipated. Like if you thought Dmitry Bivol was going to win like 4 out of the first 6 or 5 of the first 7 or 8, something like that, maybe instead of the momentum shifting in the 6th or 7th round or 5th round, maybe it shifts as early as the 3rd and 4th round, and Dmitry Bivol starts having more difficulty winning rounds after like the 4th or 5th round. But if Dmitry Bivol is really forced to have to be on the move and have to really avoid Beterbiev in the second half of the fight, that's going to be bad news for Dmitry Bivol, because that just emboldens Beterbiev's style. That's what he's expecting out of you. He doesn't think that you're going to stand with him or stand in front of him or be near him in rounds 7 through 12. That's just not the history of Beterbiev opponents. But I expect Bivol to be winning majority of the rounds in the first half of the fight, and I do think Beterbiev is going to start to rally in the middle and late rounds. The question is Bivol going to do enough in the first half of the fight to where he banked enough rounds to be competitive and have a good shot at winning on the scorecards? Or will Beterbiev have done enough in the second half of the fight after the momentum switches and have done enough in the first half of the fight not to fall too far behind on the scorecards before he starts beating up on Dmitry Bivol a bit more in the second half of the fight? Again, I think Dmitry Bivol will have the fortitude to go the distance. I think it's possible that we get a Beterbiev knockdown of Dmitry Bivol in the second half of the fight. But if there is no knockdown, I think Dmitry Bivol wins this one something like 7 rounds to 5. Close fight, maybe even 8 rounds to 4. Maybe this even results in a split decision win. And I don't think that a draw is out of the question. Like if Bivol wins the fight by 2 rounds, but Beterbiev scores a knockdown or something like that, you could have a scenario where it's not a 6 rounds to 6 fight, but it still results in a draw. We've seen that before. So I would liken this more to, not because of the styles. The styles are very different than what I'm about to say, but Jarrett Hurd versus Erislandy Lara, where Lara was boxing well, boxing early, but then you started to see Jarrett Hurd start rolling downhill on Lara, and he dropped him, I believe, in the final round, and did just enough in that comeback, in that rally, to win. I think it was like majority decision or something like that, win a close fight on the scorecards. Where if you were Erislandy Lara, or in this case Dmitry Bivol, you're looking at your watch like, how much more time do we have? Because this guy's coming on strong. I don't know how much more I could withstand. I'm trying to move, trying to box, but the pressure's really getting to me. I could see a scenario like that. And then again, it becomes a toss-up on the scorecard where it's a question of, did Bivol do enough or did Beterbiev do enough? I'm going to say, and I'm factoring a few things here. I'm factoring in the 39 years of age, where Artur Beterbiev is actually going to turn 40 in January of next year. So he's a lot closer to 40 than he is to when he turned 39. He's knocking on 40's door, or in the words of Eminem when he was dissing Benzino, you're kicking 40's door down. So I'm looking at the age. I mean, I've been looking at age in Beterbiev fights for like his last 4 or 5 fights, and every time again, it's like, I guess there was nothing to it, you know what I mean? But I'm looking at that, and I'm looking at that knee injury. I feel like that one is kind of being underreported. It's almost like we just expect this guy to heal like Wolverine, where he's just exceeding rational human timetables and he's just able to recover super quickly and you don't see any drop off in performance. I think that this catches up with you at a point, and he's 39. So you mean to tell me a 39-year-old with a meniscus tear is going to heal in a few months, or not even heal in a few months, but heal in a couple months so you could get into camp and fight by October? This injury was just reported in May. So how long of a camp did he have? If he got hurt in May, June, July, okay, so that's 3 months. Did it take you 3 months to recover to where you then had 2 months, 6 to 8 weeks to prepare between August and then September, and then the fight is mid-October? I don't know. Something is very concerning about that. So I'm gonna almost I know I've done this in the past and I've been wrong, but I think it's going to have some sort of a impact on Beterbiev's performance. I mean, even if he's able to fight and fight well, maybe it's just that he takes longer to get going because his knee has to warm up. Like he's kind of feeling it. He's kind of walking more sluggishly in the first couple of rounds. It has to warm up and then he can start getting going, getting his feet moving so he could track down Dmitry Bivol and use that jab to get into range to throw those short hooks, start trying to back Dmitry Bivol up, beat him up into the ropes. Because I feel like the longer that this fight is taking place truly in the middle of the ring, even though we've seen improvements from Beterbiev at long range, like that was a long looping right hand that caught Callum Smith after taking a beat down, right? Smith was getting beaten down over the course of a few rounds, but it was a nice, well-timed right hand at range that hurt Callum Smith and kind of signaled the beginning of the end. But if this fight takes place in the middle of the ring, the better it is for Dmitry Bivol, I think. And I think that Dmitry Bivol is going to have the fresher legs. I think he's going to box as well as he ever has. Like he's going to need, both of these guys are going to need their best performance to beat the other, because neither of these guys has fought anybody the caliber of the other. But I'm asking myself, can Dmitry Bivol extend the type of success that Alexander Gvozdyk had against Beterbiev? So if Gvozdyk was able to kind of control the fight more or less, because I mean, Beterbiev had his moments like in rounds 3 and 4 and stuff like that, but if you thought Gvozdyk was winning through maybe 6, maybe 7 rounds, right? A couple rounds before he started to really slow down and then get dropped and then eventually get broken down and stopped. If you thought Gvozdyk was having that success through 6 rounds, can Dmitry Bivol extend that through 8, 9 rounds? I kind of think that Bivol could implement Gvozdyk's game plan, but do it a little bit better and for a little bit longer. And I'm not making a declaration about Gvozdyk's heart, but Bivol seems like he's really one of those stone cold, like emotionless face, right? When do you see him really getting worked up? He just has one of those poker faces where I just have a tough time seeing Bivol get broken down to where he eventually gets beaten down and takes a knee. I can't picture it. I mean, if anybody can do it to him, it's Beterbiev. I just don't think that at 39 years old, he's going to do that to the 34, 33-year-old? Yeah, 33. Bivol turns 34 in December. So I was very close to I was really close to changing what my gut feeling was in the last video and instead going with Beterbiev, but via decision. Because again, I think that this one is going to go the distance. I just have too much respect for both of these guys. Resilience, determination, IQ, durability. I was going to swing to Beterbiev because maybe he gets a late knockdown and starts winning more of the late rounds and he stole one of the early rounds or 2 of the early rounds or something like that, where Beterbiev could win it on the scorecards. But I'm going to stick with Dmitry Bivol because I feel like the idea is that one of these guys has superpowers and that person is Beterbiev. We've got very good, talented boxer in Dmitry Bivol versus the otherworldly Artur Beterbiev. So there's a lot of reason to think that Beterbiev is going to win because we've seen his performances fight over the past several years. I've also seen a lot of great performances, dominant performances from Dmitry Bivol over the years. And again, 39 versus 33, meniscus tear. I'm going to go with Dmitry Bivol to win this one via close decision. Something like 7 rounds to 5, maybe 8 rounds to 4, maybe even a majority or split decision. But I'm taking Bivol to win the close decision to become undisputed light heavyweight champion and giving us the resolution that we never got in the past generation because Adonis Stevenson ended up getting knocked off and almost killed, unfortunately, by Alexander Gvozdyk, and Sergey Kovalev ended up getting dethroned, first via controversial decision and then via stoppage against Andre Ward. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on this one. Beterbiev versus Bivol. I can't wait for this one. Such an important fight. Turki Al-Sheikh does it again, and I'm gonna probably cover 1 or 2 more fights before the fight day. Maybe the Frazier Clark versus Wardley 2 fight. I know Shakur Stevenson versus Cordino was supposed to be on this undercard, but that one was postponed. And also Sky Nicholson's gonna be defending her title. And you know, I'm gonna bring this up in a later video, but do you think Sky Nicholson, if you've seen her fight and the way that she boxes, do you think she could beat Amanda Serrano and or Alicia Baumgartner? Like, how good is Sky Nicholson? Because she's winning these fights against a couple names now, but she's winning them with ease. Let me know if you think I'm crazy, but I kind of think that her style would give Amanda Serrano some issues. She's got those long arms, she changes levels, she boxes well at distance, she takes steps back, is good at counterpunching the person coming in. Serrano, I believe, is gonna be significantly shorter than Sky Nicholson. Let me know what you think about that. I mean, she's not fighting Amanda Serrano on this card, obviously, but I'm watching Sky Nicholson box and I'm like, damn, she's technically sound. She doesn't have a lot of power, but she's a sweet scientist. Yeah, let me know what you think about that. But yeah, tell me who you're picking. Beterbiev versus Bivol, and how do you see this one shaping up? And even if you left a comment in the last video, I'm gonna respond to that, but feel free to drop one here letting me know what your final thoughts on this one are. And I do plan to do a live chat before this fight so we could talk about this fight, you know, on a more interactive level. But yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments, like the video, subscribe to the channel if you are into the fight talk. I'm Woog, thanks for tuning in.